Hi guys, today I want to do a little bit of a 2017 releases wrap up. I'm very excited to do this video today. I really read a lot of new releases in 2017. I think this is probably the most new releases that I read in any year ever. So I thought it would be a fun idea to just kind of wrap up my year of 2017 and just talk about the new releases that I read. I'm not gonna mention every single release that I read, but I just have a few categories that I thought would be fun to talk about. I have decided to first talk about all of the books that I mentioned as my most anticipated releases. So out of these 50 most anticipated releases, I read 24. These are the 24 ones that I read. I'm really happy that I managed to almost read half of my most anticipated releases. Never expected that. Out of these 24, I loved these 13 ones, so that means these are either 4 or 5 stars, and then I have 3 that were 1 or 2 stars, and the ones that you now see that are left are between 2.5 and 3.5 stars. So some of them were meh, and other ones were still really good, but just not quite ones that I loved. Now let's look at the ones that are unread. So these are the 26 books that I did not manage to read yet, and out of these 26, 5 were DNFs, 6 were ones that I'm just no longer interested in, all for different reasons. There's a couple of ones that ended up being problematic, there's a few ones that I just lost interest in, and there's a few that got such bad ratings and reviews that I'm just not willing to read them anymore. You now see that 15 ones are left. All of these are still ones that I really want to read, and I hope to get to in 2018. We'll see. I actually already own 3 of these, so these are probably the ones that I will read soonish. So these are just my most anticipated releases. In total, I was able to read 48 2017 releases, which is almost half of what I read. I'm so excited. I never expected that. Some of these were a little bit anticipated releases. Some of these I just kind of stumbled upon randomly because I found them in a library or on Overdrive. Other ones were just sequels or serious endings that I didn't even know were released in 2017. So that's kind of how this number of 24 anticipated releases and 24 other ones is happening. So let's get into a few categories that I just kind of want to talk about, just some of my favorites that I read. I will try and not mention the books that I mentioned in my top books too much. I will probably just mention them really quickly and then move on to something that hasn't really gotten as much spotlight on my channel as the other ones. So first, my favorite adult book, basically my favorite adult fantasy, and that was Red Sister by MacLeod. Now obviously, if we would really go for favorite adult fantasy, that would be A Conjuring of Light, but nobody wants to hear about this anymore. So I do want to talk about Red Sister by MacLeod. It's really been a while since I read some proper adult fantasy, and Red Sister just really made me realize that I really love it and I need to read more of it. It's just so great, so interesting, so intriguing, great world building, but also really great characters. And yeah, just really loved this. Then I want to talk about my favorite 2017 thriller. Now, I didn't read many thrillers in general in the year, but I really love this book, so I definitely had to put it on some kind of list, and that is Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough. This is one of the few thrillers, mystery, this kind of genre that got 5 stars from me. That's really rare. It had amazing plot twists and it had likable characters, and that is the one thing that most thrillers cannot do. I won't be emotionally attached to any of the characters, so that immediately will take off 1 star. This one, I felt so much for the characters. Oh my god, and the ending was just so shocking. Oh my fucking god, so good, such a great book. Oh my god, just loved it. Then I also want to talk about my favorite non-fiction that was released in 2017, and even though this only got 3 stars, I still think it's really worth a read if you're into memoirs, and that is Unfiltered by Lily Collins. She has so many amazing stories to tell about emotionally abusive relationships, about her eating disorder. I just highly recommend it if you're into memoirs in general. As always with memoirs, highly recommend the audiobook. Hearing Lily Collins tell these stories herself is just the best thing. Then I have my favorite 2017 debut. I didn't even read that many, but probably even if I had, I would have to mention The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. Now, I have to say I did not love this as much as everybody else does. I think it's very important and I think everybody should read it, but for me personally, it was not a 5-star read. I just didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed some of the other contemporaries that I read this year, and I read a couple of really amazing ones, so it really wasn't easy anyway. But yeah, it's an important book and it's an amazing debut. I can't wait to see more of Angie Thomas' works, and I'm just so happy that I'm finally having a spot to talk about this book. Then I have favorite contemporary. Now I said it before, 2017 was probably my like contemporary heaviest year. Not only were there 6 books that made it onto my top list, but just in general, I think I never read as many contemporaries as I did in 2017, and a lot of these were 2017 releases. So first of all, I just want to quickly mention the ones that were already on my top books list. Ramona Blue, The Upside of Unrequited, Forever Geek, and Dress Codes for Small Towns, but you will all know about these. I also really loved Queens of Geek by Jen Wilde. I just love everything that has to do with like nerdy stuff and conventions, and it had a female romance, it had anxiety representation. Just really liked it, and it's such a quick read. I also really loved Geekerella by Ashley Poston. This is obviously a retelling of Cinderella, but it's like very contemporary and also takes place at a convention. It's about fandom and everything, and I will forever talk about the amazing job that Ashley Poston did with like talking about fandom, and you could really tell all of the passion that Ashley Poston poured into it and all of the kind of fandom love that she herself has. Forever my absolute favorite thing about this book. And then I also have Like Water by Rebecca Podas. This is such a great YA contemporary about like figuring out your sexuality, but in general, great friendship and family dynamics as well, and just really, really beautiful. Like writing beautiful, just everything beautiful. Then I have my favorite YA fantasy, and it's so funny because it's like basically, I know we can argue about this, but I think if we kind of look at BookTube in general, for me the like 4 YA fantasy queens would be Sarah J Maas, Cassandra Clare, Laini Taylor, and Leigh Bardugo. And you would not be surprised to know that Sarah J Maas is not on this list. But I do have Lord of Shadows by Cassandra Clare, Stranger Dreamer by Laini Taylor, and The Language of Thorns by Leigh Bardugo on this list. So I feel like this really just kind of confirms the spot that these ladies have on the YA fantasy list. All 3 of these were amazing. Lord of Shadows was so much better than Lady Midnight. So much more diversity and just general representation. Just much more emotional investment for me. Stranger Dreamer by Laini Taylor, no surprise. Absolutely fucking loved it. Amazing world building, amazing characters. Can't wait for the sequel. And The Language of Thorns by Leigh Bardugo, also absolutely no surprise. I love Leigh Bardugo's folk tales, and I love how well she knows her world. There's 2 more kind of character focused categories that I want to talk about. The first one is favorite main character, but for both of the books that I'm gonna mention, I also think that they count as just like general favorite cast of characters. And the first one is Emika Chen from Warcross, and just the whole kind of Warcross cast, amazing. Emika is so badass but also emotional. And then also Jane Unlimited by Christine Cashore. Jane is such an amazing main character. I was able to relate to her in a lot of parts. She's also like strong, but like strong in a way where she like owns her feelings and is really emotional, and she's brave and she's amazing. But also for this one, whole cast of characters was really great and just made this whole book, like this book would not have been what it was if it wasn't for this amazing cast of characters. And I do want to talk about my favorite OTP in a 2017 release, and I have to say there was not a new to me introduced ship that is now a new OTP, but if I look at all of the romantic relationships that I read in 2017, there were definitely a lot that I really, really liked. Like I wouldn't have loved Ramona Blue or Queens of Geek if I didn't love the relationships in them, but if I just look at the kind of romantic relationship that most surprised me and where I was most like, oh my god, yes, that is the end game in That Inevitable Victorian Thing by E.K. Johnston. I can't talk about it because it's spoilers, but that end game made me so fucking happy. Probably the happiest I was with any kind of new relationship that I read in 2017. Amazing. Amazing, amazing. I mean, honestly, that book is worth it just for that end game. Anyway, this was my 2017 release wrap up. Really a great year for releases in general. I want to thank all of you so much who kind of told me throughout the year that you picked up a certain release because I was really like hyping and loving it, or that you kind of use my anticipated releases list as like a release updater. That always makes me really, really happy. I really appreciate that. And yeah, just let me know if you have any thoughts on any of the things that I mentioned, what your favorite 2017 release was, or in general, how your year was kind of going. Did you read a lot of 2017 releases, or were you just kind of reading more backlist stuff? I definitely even though I have so many anticipated releases for 2018, need to read more backlist in 2018. I feel like, I hope I can make that happen. I'm really not sure. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I guess I'll see you soon. Bye!